Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Nibbling. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I will be breaking down the Week 19 schedule, giving you some strategy around how to approach this Four Nations tournament break. Let's get it. Now, unfortunately for all of you listening and watching, but most unfortunately for me, I do not have Mr. Blake Creamer here with me. Yeah, just it didn't work out this week. It's a bit of a different week, obviously, with the Four Nations tournament coming up here, and the NHL will be on hiatus for a couple of weeks, but I wanted to get this out there just in case people were wondering what they should be doing this week. Week 18, if you're playing on Yahoo, does reset after Sunday here. And so week 19 officially starts on Monday the 10th. So you do have a brand new set of ads that you could start making on the 10th. And so I wanted to get this out there. Wanted to brush up on some news around the league as well, get that out there, just provide a little bit more before we get into the break, and we'll kind of take it from there. So let's dig in on some Newsies. Off the top, we have Mikko Rantanen missing this game here on Saturday. That's a new one. Caught me by surprise. They had the 1 p.m. game on Saturday, and I wasn't able to get him out. So, yeah, I thought, I checked everything at like noon, checked all my lineups, everything was looking good, and then, yeah, didn't get him out of a lineup until I checked again at literally like 1:02, and the game had already started. But anyway, that's just my pain, but hopefully everybody else was able to get Rantanen out of their lineups. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of information that I was able to find. Maybe there's better information by the time that you've got this, but yeah, hopefully it's nothing too serious. Hopefully he's good to go for Finland as well for the Four Nations. But yeah, Rantanen out Saturday, one to monitor there. Just some other stuff around the league. Owen Tippett missed 5 straight. So watch that one as well. Obviously, with the break, you hope that he's getting back. Sidney Crosby, the news today is that he's missing the game here on Saturday, but he may still go to the Four Nations, and that's going to be a decision for him to make, how he's feeling. Elliot Friedman made a good point that if anyone's deserved the right to kind of make this decision for himself and not really have a lot of input from the team or other places, that it should be Sidney Crosby. Do tend to agree with that. Nico Hischier, I think, should be back after the Four Nations break. That's the kind of the idea of where they expect to be. I think the direct quote from Sheldon Keefe was, I would be surprised if he's not back by the end of the Four Nations tournament. Josh Norris also looks like he should be within the window to return after Four Nations. Miro Heiskanen, though, he's had surgery, and that's looking like a long term. They're basically just hoping that he's back before the end of the season at this point, and so that's a tough look for your fantasy squads, but yeah, hopefully you've got an IR spot and you can just drop him there, and hopefully he does make it back. Matthew Barzal sounds like maybe ready in 6 weeks. Had a minor procedure, it sounds like, on the knee. And so hopefully he is back in that 6 weeks time frame. That does still kind of put him into your fantasy playoffs. So if it extends any beyond that, he may miss your fantasy playoffs, especially if your fantasy playoffs don't go to the end of the NHL regular season. Yeah, it also may be a situation if the Islanders, trend downwards and they're not making the playoffs, and they start to sell off other assets. Does it turn into a situation where they just decide to shut down Matthew Barzal for the full season, not risk anything, not try to force him to come back if he's not 100%, or it's hard for him to get back to 100%? Yeah, could be a situation there. Definitely one to monitor, and not one that I'm feeling comfortable with at this time. Moving over to Columbus, we still don't really have a clear timeline on Kirill Marchenko. It was a broken jaw, so the theory is generally, I guess, 6 to 8 weeks on something like that. Best case is 4 weeks, I guess, but more likely around an average of 6 weeks. So that would again put him kind of on that Barzell timeline, getting into your fantasy playoffs. So again, hopefully you got an IR spot you can put him for now, because otherwise, yeah, it's a tough spot for everybody who's been riding the Marchenko train this season. The good news for Columbus is that Igor Chinnikov and Boone Jenner are looking to be back sooner rather than later. Jenner's been skating for a while, long-term injury there, so it makes sense that he's going to take a little bit longer to get back. But I think the intent there is for him to be back after the Four Nations. Igor Chinnikov, the first time I saw any news of him skating was today. So he's still got a couple weeks here, obviously, to get back into shape before the Columbus Blue Jackets start playing again. But that would be the hope, I guess, is that he can make it back for the first game after the break. Whether or not that comes true or not is still to be seen, but I think it's at least within the range of possibilities that he's back when the Blue Jackets are back and playing hockey. Valery Nichushkin as well. Sounds like the intent there is for him to get fully right during the break here and to be back after the Four Nations break is concluded. All right, let's get into the schedule here. I'm basically just going to I will talk through each of the days as I normally do, but I also want to just kind of talk through the strategy of what to do in a weird week like this. So, yeah, as I mentioned, the week 19 for Yahoo does start on Monday, February 10th here. And then this week 19, quote unquote, week 19 runs all the way until March 2nd, Sunday, March the 2nd. And so it's essentially 3 weeks worth of, it's a 3 week, 3 week matchup that you'll have in Yahoo. So that's how they're running it there. That does mean that there are actually 9 days with games being played in the NHL, because the NHL comes back on Saturday the 22nd. And so you get the Saturday, Sunday before the week of Monday the 24th through Sunday, March the 2nd. So 9 total days of games being played, I should say. And that's going to result in 75 total games being played during that span. On Saturday, the 22nd, the first day back, there's 14 games right away. So super heavy night there. And then Sunday, the 23rd, there's 10 games. So you're getting a ton of teams playing back to back on the first 2 days back. The Monday, the 24th, there's 2 games. Tuesday, 12 games. Wednesday, 3 games. Thursday, 12 games. Friday, 3 games. Saturday, March the 1st, is 13 games. And Sunday, March the 2nd, is 6 games. So you kind of get the idea here. A lot of super heavy nights. Sunday, with the 10 games on the 23rd is the only heavy, quote unquote, heavy night that's not like super heavy. The rest are all quite heavy, and it's actually kind of unlikely that you'll have spots to put in players, to stream players on those nights. So off nights are something to be targeting for sure in this schedule. 75 total games played is a pretty heavy week, obviously. There's a lot of games being played. But that does mean that if you get the streams in and you are optimizing your lineup, you do have a pretty good chance of getting some good work done and altering your outcome here. There is one team with a Sunday, Monday back-to-back. So Sunday the 23rd with the 10-game schedule, and Monday that 2-game schedule. That's San Jose. And that actually is pretty interesting to me. If you can get a San Jose player in on that Sunday 10-game slate and get them back for that Monday, the off night on the Monday, that's actually going to be quite valuable, especially with how light that Monday is. Only 2 games being played on that Monday. So that's pretty interesting to me. There aren't any teams with a Monday, Tuesday back-to-back. There are 2 teams with Monday, Wednesday back-to-backs, or off nights, I should say, in that week. That's Los Angeles and Winnipeg. There are 2 teams with Wednesday, Friday off nights, Los Angeles again and Colorado. And then there are 4 teams with Friday, Sunday off nights. That's Dallas, Minnesota, the New York Rangers, and Toronto. So you have to look at all 9 days of action here and build out what's going to work best for you. And yeah, it's a little bit more to think about than we typically have to, right? With the extra couple of days, and really just figuring out if you can fit anybody in on that Sunday, because you're almost assuredly not going to be able to have any room on that 14-game slate on Saturday the 22nd, the first day that everybody's back from the Four Nations. So having said that, let's move over to lowered expectations, talk through the worst teams to stream from. So I want to just first kind of go through the teams that play on Saturday the 22nd, the 14-game slate, but then do not play on Sunday the 23rd, the 10-game slate. Those teams are Boston, Buffalo, Carolina, Columbus, Florida, Los Angeles, Minnesota, Montreal, Ottawa, Philadelphia, Vegas, and Winnipeg. Then there are four teams that play on Sunday the 23rd on the 10-game slate, but not on Saturday 22nd, the 14-game slate. Those four teams are Calgary, the New York Islanders, San Jose, and Tampa Bay. And so those could be potential targets there. As for teams throughout the actual week, so when I should kind of preface this, I guess, when I'm talking about these games played and off nights for the rest of the teams here, this is only for the week of the Monday through the Sunday. So Seattle plays two games and the Monday through the Sunday and no off nights. So that's obviously going to be a tough schedule to keep anybody on the fringes there in Seattle. I'm not dropping Brandon Montour. I'm not dropping Vince Dunn. I'm not dropping Jared McCann, but I would drop everybody else in Seattle. I think that's pretty straightforward for most people. In Ottawa, there's two games played with only one off night. Obviously, you're not dropping Chichuk, Stutzla, Sanderson, Batherson. Kind of combine those two names there. Not dropping any of those guys, but I would drop, Thomas Shabbat, Claude Giroux, Josh Norris. If you need to drop those guys, I don't have a problem with doing that. With just given that they only have the two games played and you're only really going to fit them in for one night anyway. There are 12 teams that play three games played Monday through Sunday and have zero off nights. And there are four teams of those 12. There are four that play those three games and zero off nights, but also only play the super heavy Saturday, the 22nd, in this matchup. And so basically, if you look at the matchup as a whole, it's four games played and zero off nights. And those teams are Buffalo, Florida, Montreal, and Philadelphia. Going through Buffalo, you're not dropping Darlene, Tage, Tuck, Paterka in my mind, but I would be willing to drop everybody else. Paterka for me has kind of moved into the circle of trust now. The last little bit, I'm willing to pretty much hang on to him now. And my baseline expectation for Paterka rest of season is that he's going to do kind of what he did at the end of last season that made him such a breakout or sleeper darling. I do think that he's going to be really valuable, and with Buffalo's playoff schedule, this is a spot where I'm willing to hold Paterka even if the schedule is not that good this week. For Florida, obviously not dropping Reinhardt, Kachuk, Barkov. I would not be dropping Verhage. He's finally popping off, and the underlings have been there all year long. I'm willing to drop everybody else. Sam Bennett in Bangers Cats, you're probably hanging on to just because he's so good across categories. But in a points league, you can probably drop him as well. Montreal, you're not dropping Cole Caulfield. You're not dropping Nick Suzuki. I am willing to drop everybody else, including Lane Hudson, including Patrick Laine. I don't think you have to hang on to those players in the weeks like this. We're getting to that point of the season where the bar to clear for whether you're going to stay in my lineup is dropping. If you're first in your league, then yeah, you probably don't have to drop Lane Hudson this week, right? You can afford to hang on to him even if the schedule's not optimal. But if you're scrapping for that final playoff spot, you should absolutely be looking at these players and saying, you know what, even if he's good the rest of the way, I just can't handle that right now. I have to win this week or else I literally will not make the playoffs. And so I have to make this move. If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. And so kind of from here on out, you are kind of in a different mode than you've been in all season. Your bar to clear for hanging on to players has to be lower than it has been. So yeah, you have to be willing to move off of players more now than at any other point in the season so far. And it's just mounting week by week, right? If you're scrapping incline for the playoffs, you have to make some of these tough decisions. In Philadelphia, you're not dropping Travis Konechny, but I'm willing to drop everybody else. Tippett, you probably have on your IR or IR plus right now, but he's kind of on the line for me. Yeah, if you have to drop him, I wouldn't feel too bad about it. All right, let's keep rolling then. Let's get to crossing the streams. It feels weird to talk about this with Blake not here, but in the spirit of Blake, I wanted to talk about our first time ever crossing the streams. I think Blake has talked about other moments as the first time we crossed the streams, but I think he's actually forgetting the very first time we crossed the stream. So I wanted to bring that to you here. When Blake talks about crossing the streams, like if he's like defining it for someone, he always talks about it as overlooking a lake, and I think that's because that's what it was for us the first time that we crossed the streams. I think that's why it's just kind of stuck in his mind that way, that that's like the true way to cross the streams. And, it was both of our first times crossing the streams. So that was, really poignant and really special for both of us. It was beautiful. It was consensual, just really taking our relationship to the next level. And, it's been rocket ships ever since for both of us. That was really, you know, just the confirmation of our relationship going to that next level. And it's been fantasy hockey dominance and best friendship ever since. So yeah, just in the spirit of Blake, I wanted to bring you a story about crossing the streams. And I thought, what better story to bring than just the first time that it happened for us. So there you have it. Back to the actual fantasy hockey content here. And basically, what you need to ask yourself in a situation like this, where we're gonna have so much time, where no NHL hockey is going to be played, you have to think a little bit more critically about who is worth actually going in and grabbing on Monday, when the ads reset. And because this is 2 weeks in advance, and a lot can change in 2 weeks. We can get more injury news, players returning, players developing injuries. There's going to be players who go to the Four Nations. Somebody is going to get injured in the Four Nations tournament and not be available to their team when they return. And that's going to create new opportunities for some players when they come back. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts in these 2 weeks. And so basically, if I'm making an ad on Monday when the ads reset this week, I have to be pretty confident that they're going to be good when we get back to NHL hockey on Saturday the 22nd. And that's not a foregone conclusion here 2 weeks in advance. So I have to be pretty confident in the player. I have to be pretty confident, in their lineup spot, that they're not going to get shuffled around in the lineup, or that, they're good enough to overcome it if they do. That there's kind of an extra level that they have to clear for me to be willing to do this. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to basically intentionally hold my ads until I'm feeling a little bit better about it. Maybe I will miss out on some streamers because of that, but I'm going to be pretty intentional about that. In some cases, if you have a really obvious drop, like if you stream in a goalie on the Sunday here, and it's like your fourth goalie on your team, and so this is a really obvious drop, and you don't want to have this guy on your roster anyway, and so you're gonna drop them, then maybe it's a little bit more worth it to take a slightly more speculative ad on Monday morning, just because you have a guy that you already know is going to be pretty much worthless to you when you come back in week 19. But again, I'm really prioritizing only adding players that I feel very confident are going to be worthwhile players when we get back in to NHL hockey on Saturday the 22nd. So, with that being said, let's get into the teams here. Los Angeles is the only team that plays 4 games played in 3 off nights in the week March or February 24th through March 2nd, the Monday through Sunday there. Sorry. They also play Saturday the 22nd, the super heavy night. So probably not going to get your streamer in there, but the 3 off nights, they're the only team with 3 off nights within the week. And so that's going to be obviously pretty valuable. So this is a pretty valuable team to stream from, a little bit differentiated from the other teams that you have available to you. And so maybe that's a reason why you would be a little bit extra interested in streaming from this team for this week. So for me, there's a couple of players that I'm actually pretty interested in here. Alex Laferriere is one. Alex Laferriere has been popping off under the hood. I don't think people really realize he's only got 2 points in his last 17.5 minutes average time on ice, but he's 13th in shots per 60 and second in individual scoring chances for per 60 over those 5 games. I think Alex Laferriere is a guy that I'd be willing to go in on Monday morning if you don't have him, if he's not rostered in your league already. He's really coming up as of late, and I like that a lot. Quentin Byfield is the other one. He's put together a bunch of assists lately. His deployment has been quite secure for a long time now. I don't know that this is like as high an upside pick as some, but I do feel pretty secure in the deployment here, and so I think Byfield makes sense as a pretty solid streamer. You know, in 12 team, I'd be pretty interested, or obviously deeper than that. Anybody below that on Los Angeles, I'm not going to be super interested in. I'm not going to go there at this point. There might be players that I'll be interested in when we get back to it. Saturday the 22nd, we see some new lines. We know what the injuries are, what the updates are on everybody. We see everything. Then maybe there's other players on Los Angeles that we'd be interested in, and we'll get into that. Obviously when hockey and fantasy hockey is back online, we'll be bringing that to you for sure. But at this point in time, there's nobody else beyond those two, LaFerriere and Byfield, that I'm going to be adding come Monday the 10th. There are two teams rather with 4 games played in 2 off nights. Both of these also play on Saturday the 22nd, the super heavy night. That's Winnipeg, Minnesota and Winnipeg. Yeah, basically on Minnesota, Marco Rossi is still under 50% rostered, which makes no sense. Absolutely, Marco Rossi should be rostered, especially for a week like this. Winnipeg, there's nobody. The rostership percentage on Yahoo, you have Gabriel Velarde at 74%. He's not available in any competitive league. And then it goes all the way down to Cole Perfetti at 28%. And Perfetti's not a player that I'm going to add this much in advance. Although I do think, his deployment is not that good right now. It's probably pretty secure. So there is that with Perfetti. Then there are 5 teams that play 3 games played with 2 off nights. The 4 of those also play both the Saturday the 22nd and the Sunday the 23rd back to back. And so if you do have space on Sunday the 23rd in that 10-game slate, then you are getting 3 games played probably out of these players. And so that's a little bit of feather in the cap for these players as well. So the 4 teams that have that schedule, that have the back to back on the opening weekend and then play 3 games with 2 off nights are Dallas, New Jersey, the New York Rangers, and Toronto. From Dallas, really, it's Mason Marchment that sticks out to me here. I do think I would take that stab on Mason Marchment. He hasn't had a great return to the lineup there, but he's going to have another couple weeks here to get completely right, get his legs under him again. I do think he'll hit the ground running when they get back. Stankoven has really taken a dip in ice time, and so I'm saying no to Logan Stankoven at this time, just based on the ice time as of late. If we get back on the Saturday and he has a big ice time night, he's playing in a different situation, then maybe I'm back and interested. But until then, I'm saying no to Logan Stankoven. In New Jersey, Stefan Nason, I would say yes to. I would pick up Stefan Nason this Monday because I think that role is pretty secure. Luke Hughes and everybody else who's available, under 50% rostered on Yahoo, I would say no. Luke Hughes is going to just be really inconsistent. I think there's probably going to be some different options. Ideally, you don't have to go to a defenseman. If you do need to go to a defenseman, hopefully you're just filling like a 4th roster spot. And in that case, I'd probably go for a team that's playing more games. So yeah, that's where I'm at with Luke Hughes. Then the Rangers, there's really no one here. Alexis Lafreniere at 62% rostered. He's probably not there. And then it goes all the way down to Will Cooley at 29%. And Will Cooley's not someone I'm going to go out in advance and pick up. Then moving over to Toronto, if Matthew Knies is there, he's at 51% rostered, then yes, I would pick up Matthew Knies this far in advance. Feels pretty secure, his deployment. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, yes, if you need the off nights from a defenseman, then sure, I could see that, actually. That makes some sense to me. I guess you could say the same for Luke Hughes, but I'm just not convinced that Hughes is going to do anything on any given night, and that part really scares me. But anybody else on Toronto, no. Not going to be super interested there. The 5th team with 3 games played in 2 off nights through the week is Vegas. They only play on Saturday the 22nd, that super heavy night. So they're just slightly less interesting, especially if you do have room on Sunday the 23rd that the other 4 teams play on. From Vegas, though, Pavel Dorofeyev, always yes to Pavel Dorofeyev. Ivan Barbashev, actually yes as well. I would be into Barbashev. I think that makes some sense, just given the fact that, he's often playing on that Eichel line. Getting exposure to Eichel is going to be helpful. So I feel pretty confident that Barbashev is worthwhile, but it's a no to all the others for sure. And then lastly, Colorado plays 2 games played, but both are on off nights, and they also play Saturday, Sunday back to back. So there's a chance that these guys are getting you 3 games played. If that's the case for you, then yeah, you're going to be interested. So Valerie Nichushkin at 48% roster, that's a yes for me. I'm picking up Valerie Nichushkin. Jonathan Drouin, 32% rostered is a big maybe. I don't feel confident about it, but if you really feel like if you want Drouin, you have to go get him right away on Monday the 10th, then maybe you're into it. I'll leave that one to you, but I feel pretty unsettled about where he's going to be, especially with Nichushkin back. Nichushkin could come right back in and even bump Drouin off the power play, and if he's not on top power play and not on top line with McKinnon, that's a really tough spot for Drouin to produce. So that's the worry with Jonathan Drouin. Everybody else on Colorado is going to be a no from me, dog. Talking about the Patreon here, supporter tier, $2 a month gets you access to patron only live shows. There will be a patron only live show on this Monday the 10th. So come check that out. $2 a month, as I said, get you in there. If you do sign up on Patreon, make sure that you click the link to connect to Discord, and then you'll get a notification where to join, basically. When I'm doing that, it'll be 9 p.m. ish on Monday. That'll be doing that right after Puzzling Players. So come check that out. The Apple's tier, $8 a month, gets you access to those patron-only live shows, access to patron-only Discord channels, gets you access to the show notes like the ones that I'm reading off right now, and gets you access to Apples and Geno's player evaluation tool, which is how I read off those last 5 game stats, the point paces, all that stuff in a nice package for you to be able to compare and contrast players. If you're a true degenerate, the Genos tier exists exclusively for you, $15 a month, all the previous perks mentioned, plus I will personally answer every single one of your questions, guaranteed. But that's pretty much going to be the podcast here. We're not going to do the dream streams or the hold me segments here. Blake and I will be back in your ear before then. Actually, we're going to do, instead of the flagship show, we're going to be doing pod about the Four Nations tournament. That'll be in your ears Monday morning. So come check that out for sure. Yeah, we're going to just kind of go over the rosters, try to, make some predictions about how it's going to go, make a fool of ourselves in general. Interested to know if you are interested in the Four Nations tournament, if you want us to talk more about it. Blake and I threw around the idea, maybe we could even do just like a live stream. That'd be kind of interesting to us. We could live stream ourselves watching the game, just hang out with people live on YouTube. We might be able to do something like that. So let us know if you're interested in doing something like that with us. Yeah, especially like the Canada-USA game. I think that's going to be a wild game. Super emotional, it sounds like, for the players. I think they're pretty into it. There hasn't been international hockey for men's hockey in quite a while, so I think that the players are going to be pretty jacked up for it and pretty excited about it personally. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty interesting. But I think that's going to be all that I've got for this episode. So hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.